Good morning, everyone. Master said, as I'm sure you have heard, that the devotee does 25% of the work, God does 50% of the work, and the guru does 25% of the work for the benefit of the devotee. Now, obviously, our 25% is part of the equation, but for us, it takes 100% of our effort in order for that 25% to be effective. So this morning, Davy and I are going to talk about the other 75%, the part that's done by God, the 50% that's done by God, and the 25% that's done for us by the Guru. So let me start with the largest chunk, the part that's done by God. First, we have to understand and realize that there is nothing in existence except God. So it's not as if God out there is doing something on behalf of us. It's a much more complicated relationship than that. It's as if God is dreaming this universe. And so to help a character in that dream come up to awakening, it's still God's dream, but that character in the dream thinks that he is doing it on his own. Nonetheless, it is ultimately God helping God awaken, because that little aspect of God desires to be awakened. The rest of the dream, the other characters in the dream, they may all feel that they're really enjoying the dream, and if they only could dream a little bit more deeply, they could achieve their great desire of being a famous movie actor or whatever their desire is. For them, they want to stay asleep. They want to stay in that dream. The vast majority of people are of that nature. But there are those of us who really want to wake up. And so God is helping us wake up. But ultimately, we have to remember that it's God helping God, that there's no exterior, some other than ourselves, that's part of this drama. But God in that form, God in the universal form, is hard for the dreamer to get their mind around or to really cognize. God is omnipresent in everything that we do. He's the air that we breathe. He's the lungs that the air goes into. He's the circulation system. He's the blood. He's the heart pumping that around. It's all God. There's nothing but God. But we don't think of that. When we're walking up a steep hill and we're panting and we're out of breath, we don't think, well, this is God doing this. We think, this is hard. I'm really tired. I'm really panting hard. So that sense of separation is what we're trying to get beyond. That's the ego. But we need to realize that God is not only the 50%, but he's the 25% that the Guru does, and he's the 25% that we do. It's all God. But he takes on different roles. And so that those different roles seem to be different. And because our minds are still in the condition of separation, so we think of ourselves as being separate, then it's better in that condition to pray to God or pray in God, but to reach out to him as if he's separate from us, because otherwise a certain degree of unreality of the level of our realization slips into the picture. So let's for now, for the sake of this discussion, think of God, yes, omnipresent, but think of God in his role as the creator and as the person who keeps in the role of Vishnu, the sustainer of this universe, and in the condition of Shiva, the one that dissolves, especially us, dissolves our delusion and dissolves back into him. let's think of him as playing that separate role from us, because that's how we perceive it now, even though that, as I've been saying, is an illusion. So our job in this relationship with God is primarily to be grateful for what he has given us, and to try to the best of our ability to be aware that it is God who is giving us all of the graces by which we can live. Master said we couldn't live a minute without his blessings, without his grace. And so let's be grateful of that. Let's be more aware of it as a daily practice. And let's especially try to attune to the will of God, which is to try to, for those individuals who want, to try to draw them out of delusion with all its ups and downs, its sukha dukkha dham, the world of pleasure and pain, of all of that drama that is pleasure and pain, to neutralize all of this and draw us back into the state of absolute, ever new, pure bliss, which is his true nature and our true nature. So our job is, one, to be grateful for what he has given us in this world of creation, but even more importantly, to try to attune our will with his grand design of awakening us from delusion to bring us back into our state of union with him. So, as I say, God in that undifferentiated cosmic form is hard to get our minds around and hard to easily relate to. And God knows this. I mean, he's creating the whole drama. Let's face it. So he knows all of our problems much better than we do. So if we're having trouble relating to God, he knows it, because it's God having that trouble relating to himself. So in order to help us relate better, he takes on a manifested form, one that we can see, one that we can hear, one that we can feel. And that manifested form, he manifests as every individual. But when he manifests as the Guru, he manifests in a form of a consciousness that is aware of his unity with God. So the difference between you and me and Master is not really one of essence. It's only that Master has gone through enough experience, enough spiritual evolution to realize his oneness with God and to be able to hold on to that state continuously. And so in that state, he, because of his great compassion, has decided that he wants to incarnate into this world of change and sukha dukkha dham and pleasure and pain. He wants to incarnate to respond to the soul call of those souls that want to awaken from the dream. And so that Guru comes really primarily with a dual purpose. One is to help give us the teachings and the guidance. So he comes as the teacher and he comes as the guide. The other is that he comes bringing magnetism and a kind of a power, a spiritual power that makes us want more ardently to wake up from this dream. That dual role of the Guru is very important. So let me first talk about the Guru as the guide and the teacher. Now let's take Master as an example, because obviously we're all disciples of Master. Master, in the form of the teacher, has, again, even within that role, he has a dual role. One is as a world teacher. And so rather, one might say impersonally, he just is a lighthouse that beams out light in 360 degrees. And that light is going out. And anybody who wants to can relate to that. They don't have to be his disciples. They don't have to try to attune to him more deeply than they really want to. But he's just impersonally putting that light out. A perfect expression of this is the autobiography of a yogi. Now, anybody essentially in the whole world can read or listen to that book being read, and they can hear the truths in it. They can hear the guidance in it. And so that's an impersonal offering to the world. So Master came specifically with the mission, this whole lineage of ours, with the mission to uplift world consciousness at this time of transition between Kali Yuga and Dwapara Yuga. So that world mission, he has to play a relatively impersonal role in that because, because not everybody wants to relate to him personally. And so he just beams out truth and beams out the teachings, that the attitudes and the ways of living. And Master covered everything. He covered how to be healthy, how to eat right, how to feel, how to exercise, how to work with energy, how to work with our emotions. He gave teachings like the lighthouse in 360 degrees. And so that's a kind of an impersonal relationship. But the Guru, for those of us who really want to tune our will to him, has a second role, which is much more important for us. And that role is as a personal guide, but more importantly, to give us the grace and the magnetism to, as I say, strive more ardently to awaken from delusion. Master said it this way, and Swami Kriyananda quoted it in his book, The Essence of Self-Realization. By the way, there's a wonderful chapter in there on the need for a guru, and it would be good for you to read this. And it's also a chapter that the two are together in the book on the part of the devotee. And to read both of those chapters would be very, very helpful, because he says so many wonderful things. So there's a Greek myth of a maze that you go in and you get lost in that maze, and in the center of that maze is, I think it's a cyclops, I'm not remembering for sure, but there's a kind of a monster that's going to devour you. And because you go into that maze and there are so many turns and twists and it's dark and it's all looks the same, you get lost and you can't get back out of that maze. Well, that's a symbol of delusion. You go into delusion and there are so many twists and attractions and things that seem interesting, and pretty soon you're lost, and the monster of delusion devours you. It devours your aspirations, devours your happiness, devours your joy. So how do you get back out of that maze? Well, the hero, Theseus, took a ball of twine, and as he walked through that maze, he pulled that twine behind him, and so he could tell by retracing that line of twine how to get back out of the maze again. Well, the teachings are that line of twine. So we take that along with us, and as we go through the maze of delusion, we have the way out. Now, for us specifically, those teachings are the teachings because we have called out. Our soul call has been to Master, wake me up, get me out of this delusion. I'm tired of the ups and downs, and I'm tired of the kind of instinctual compulsions, and I just want to be free of it. And so because of that, Master says, if you really want to be free, then attune your will to my God-attuned will. Because remember, he's awake and we're asleep. So he's awake, and he says, attune to me, and I'll lead you out of the maze. So he is that twine that will lead us through all the turns and travails of being caught in delusion. Now, our part in this is in our relating to the Guru, because he's doing as much work on our behalf as we're doing ourselves. So we have to understand that his role as the Guru, he is putting out tremendous energy, not only for us, but for everyone else. He's putting out energy for world upliftment, but for all of those who consider themselves his disciples or followers or even interested in his teachings. He's giving specific energy to them. He's giving specific energy to us. How do we receive that energy? Well, we receive it by the way a solar panel receives energy from the sun by turning toward the sun. We have to turn our consciousness toward the Guru. And by opening ourselves to the Guru, we receive not only his teachings, but his grace on behalf of God. And that is a tremendous blessing. Sometimes we get caught in, forgetfulness, and we forget how important that is. But Swami Kriyananda had that magnetism. Yogananda had it even more than Swamiji had it. So there's this tremendous magnetism, but my personal experience is with Swamiji. And so he had the magnetism. Yes, you could attend his classes. You could be almost bedazzled by the wisdom of the way he explained the teachings. But more importantly, you left a class or you left his presence with a kind of a soul awakened desire to practice these teachings, to do the things that would get you out of delusion. Now, you could have read a book and gotten the same teaching, but not the same magnetism. And so that tuning into the magnetism of the Guru is extremely important. Now, how do we do that? Because that's the real question here. How do we tune into the magnetism of the Guru? Well, it's partly with the mind, but the mind is really the least of it. We have to tune in with our heart and our soul. Our heart, and we have a purification ceremony, and there's a line that is repeated in that for the devotee who comes up. The minister or the light bearer or the acharya working with him says, the master says, open your heart to me and I will enter and take charge of your life. And that's a very, very central part of the teachings. We have to open our heart. That means we have to attune our desires, which are mixed and turned everywhere. We have to attune that and say, Guruji, I want your guidance. I want your grace. And as we do that, then like an electromagnet that we're an unmagnetized bar of steel. He's an electromagnet, a very powerful one. As we ourselves, of our own free will, because he won't intrude on our free will, but from our own free will, we say, Guruji, I open my heart to you. I want to be awakened. I want to be attuned to you. I want to be aligned in my desires, in my activities, in my thoughts, in my feelings. I want only to be aligned with you. As we do that more completely, then the power flows of grace flows through that electromagnet, and it transforms us. Swamiji said that when he first met Master and accepted his blessing of discipleship, Master gave him a blessing on his heart. And Swami said that his finger was quivering as he gave that blessing. Perhaps you've seen the movie The Answer, and you've seen the depiction of that. But Swami said that he was never the same after that blessing of Master. And so what he did was to have that great power flowing into him. Why? Because he opened himself to it. So in our meditations, when you meditate, try to open your heart, consciously open your heart to Master and ask for his guidance and his grace. If you combine your 25% with his 25%, you've got half of the picture there. And because his will is aligned to God's will, you've got the whole 100% working for you. If you think you can do it on your own, you're losing out on that whole 75% of the picture. Align yourself deeply by opening your heart and opening your soul to the guidance and the grace of Master. You should try to stay in attunement, in alignment with the will of the Guru throughout your entire day, throughout your activities. You should really try to feel that every thought, every feeling, every desire, every action is done in attunement with Master. Master said his highest prayer, and I'll end with this, is, I will reason, I will, I will act, but guide thou my reason, will, and activity to the right path in everything. So we have to do our part, but we need also to do our part in attunement, in alignment with the Guru, and then his grace and God's grace will flow in and empower everything that we do. God bless you.
Namaste, everyone. I'd like to start by reading you one of my very favorite poems of Master. This is from Songs of the Soul, and you might want to just close your eyes if you like and listen to these beautiful words. The poem is When I Am Only a Dream, and feel as though Master is saying these words to you personally. I come to tell you all of him and the way to encase him in your bosom, and of the discipline that brings his grace. Those of you who have asked me to guide you to my beloved's presence, I will warn you through my silently talking mind, or speak to you through a gentle, significant glance, or whisper to you through my love, or loudly dissuade you when you stray away from him. But when I shall become only a memory, or a mental image, or a silently speaking voice, when no earthly call will ever reveal my whereabouts in unplumbed space, when no shallow entreaty or stern stentorian command will bring from me an answer, I will smile in your mind when you are right, and when you are wrong, I will weep through my eyes, dimly peering at you in the dark, and weep through your eyes perchance. I will whisper to you through your conscience, and I will reason with you through your reason, and I will love all through your love. When you are no longer able to talk with me, read my whispers from eternity. Eternally through it I will talk to you. Unknown, I will walk by your side and guard you with invisible arms. And as soon as you know my beloved and hear his voice in silence, you will know me again more tangibly than you knew me on this earth plane. And yet, when I am only a dream to you, I will come to remind you that you too are naught but a dream of my heavenly beloved. And when you know you are a dream, as I know now, we will be ever awake in him. What a magnificent promise that is. And so we're talking now about the part that God and Guru play in our ability to know God. And first of all, Master says in this poem, in the first few lines, I come to tell you all of him, and the way to encase him in your bosom, and the discipline that brings his grace. Let's just focus on that. The way to encase him in your bosom, and the discipline that brings his grace. So what is this way to encase him in our bosom and the discipline that brings his grace? We're talking about discipleship and the practice of Kriya Yoga. When we try to talk about this formula of God's part and Guru's part, what's the difference, really? Jyotish explained it quite beautifully and profoundly, but between God and Guru. In a sense, there isn't a difference. Swami gave the example in one of his talks about discipleship that God, we can think of it as the great power generating station, maybe a huge hydroelectric dam. And if we try to run the power from that into one of our mobiles or into our house, it would blow up the wires. The wires couldn't contain it. But we need stepping down stations. We need a smaller power points where we can, that transformers, where that power from the huge generating station can be stepped down so that we can receive it and that it can be useful. Well, God is that huge generating station, and the Guru, who is one with God, takes on the role of being the transformer, the personal transformer that steps down the omnipresent, unimaginable power of God into a form where we can use it. There's a beautiful description in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 11 where Krishna and Arjuna are talking, and Arjuna, the perfect model of a disciple, asks Krishna, let me see you in your cosmic form. And Krishna agrees, and he just shows him this vision of his cosmic being beyond imagination. And Arjuna can barely sustain it. He said the hairs on his head stood out, and finally he just says, oh Lord, please return and just reveal yourself to me in the human form that I can relate to. Well, this is the description of the difference between God and the Guru. We can't imagine, we can't accept, we can't receive that power. And so these enlightened, a true Guru, a Param Guru, there are many people that call themselves Gurus, but maybe they are and maybe they aren't. But the true Param Guru is one with God, and he knows how to step down that power so that we can receive it. And then it's our part to, in our relating to this personalized messenger from God who has come to bring us back to the heavenly shores from which we came, bring us back to our soul home. The Guru comes and he shows us through discipleship, through that beautiful human divine relationship of the disciple with the Guru. He shows us how we as individuals, and remember it's different for every one of us because we all have different karma, we all have different tests to face and different lessons to learn, but the Guru gives each one of us a particular lesson plan. It reminds me, when I was in school, I had a particularly wonderful literature course. There were 30 of us in the class, and the teacher assigned to each one of us a different reading list for the year, according to tuning into what she thought we needed to learn. Well, this was probably my first experience in this lifetime of a guru-disciple relationship. But she was saying, what does this student need? I will recommend these books, and they'll get that understanding. That's what the Guru does. And that's why we should never compare ourselves to anyone else, because we, wherever we are, high, low, in between, we are learning the lessons we need to learn that the Guru has brought to us. So the most important aspect of the guru-disciple relationship is attunement, as we've been saying. And I want to just touch on a few things that will help us in our attunement. The first, and I'll offer them to you as the 4 S's. First S is self-offering and surrender. That we just have to say, Lord, I cannot be transformed on my own. You have come. I don't know what I need, but you have come to show me, and I surrender myself to your guidance and to whatever comes in my life. And I offer all that I own and all that I am at your feet. And you know, even in the practice of Kriya, we'll be a little specific now, we bring the energy up the spine, don't we? And we bring it up from the medulla to the spiritual eye. And our Guruji teaches us that the spiritual eye and the medulla are actually the positive and negative poles of the same chakra, of the Kutastha. And so by at the medulla, feel that, be very conscious of drawing that energy from the medulla to the spiritual eye, and hold it there with calm focus, with the thought that you are surrendering your ego, that's where the medulla is, to your soul nature, that's where the Guru is. And so very consciously in your Kriya practice, offer that. So self-surrender. The next S is seva. Find ways to serve the Guru. It doesn't have to be grand, exalted ways. It could be humble, simple ways that nobody sees. But if you're doing it in your heart with the thought, this is for you, Guru. Swami tells a story in his autobiography, The New Path. Once he and a brother monk were building one of the buildings at Master's ashram. And this other disciple was nailing the studs in the subwall very, very carefully. And someone said to him, "Why are you taking so much care? It's going to be covered over with plaster." And the man said, "But Guruji will see them. God will see them. And if we can do everything in our life with the thought, God, I am doing this for you, and you receive it and I know you will receive it." So self-offering, seva. The next S is study. Know the Guru's teachings. Be sure that you understand the technique. So often people get it a little confused and they waste time by doing it improperly. Understand the techniques as well as the teachings for daily life and live them. But really try to absorb with your whole being what the Guru has brought and the practice of Kriya Yoga. And don't ever lose faith that the Guru is not helping you to understand how to go deeper in Kriya, because he is. That's what he's there for. And so as you do your Kriya, ask the Guru, help me to do it better, help me to go deeper. So study the Guru's teachings. And then the last S, we talked of self-offering, seva, study, is spotlight. You know, in the poem God, 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 Master said, "The spotlight of my mind is ever turning on thee." So keep your mind focused all the time on the Guru and try to be asking him all the time, is this what you want? Is this what I should do? You know, once, a few years before Swamiji passed, we were walking with him at his home in America at Crystal Hermitage, and we were walking around the back garden, so beautiful. And Swami was always, it was hard for him at the end to even just do a little walk, but because Guruji said, you should take a little exercise every day, he tried, and we would walk with him. And one day we were walking around the garden, and usually he was just quiet, he didn't say much. But at this time, he just paused for a moment, and he said very quietly to himself, really, not to us, "Oh, that's what he meant." And then we kind of looked at Swamiji with a little quizzical expression, like, what are you talking about? And he said, I was remembering something, a little moment with Master 50 years ago when he was talking with several of us monks, and he said something to one of the monks, but he raised his eyebrow a little bit to me, and now I realize he was talking to me. He wasn't talking to that other monk, even though it seemed as though he was talking to him. And it was such a window onto Swami's discipleship that even 50 years later, he was remembering the raise of an eyebrow and what the meaning of that was. And it just thrilled me and also encouraged me. Keep the spotlight of your mind always fixed on what the Guru has brought and what he's trying to teach you. And in your daily life, don't be absent-minded. We won't find God with absent-mindedness. We have to keep the spotlight of our mind ever keep turning on the goal and on what God is saying to us. And so even if you're chopping vegetables or washing dishes or creating a computer program, whatever it is, driving in traffic, keep the spotlight of your mind focused on the Guru. And all of these 4 S's lead us to attunement. And it is through attunement that our Kriya practice begins to get momentum, and that we over time, and sometimes over time it gets stronger and stronger. Sometimes people come to us and they say, oh, I've been doing Kriya for a year or maybe a few years and I don't think I'm getting anything out of it. Well, that's hard for us to say, because what Kriya is doing is loosening the vrittis, loosening the karmic knots that reside in the Sushumna, in the subtle spine. And we can't always tell. Maybe there's been a karmic seed of, I don't know, greed or jealousy or something that's been in there for lifetimes, incarnations. And yet, by doing Kriya, that seed is starting to dissolve, and we're not aware of it. And then one day, we realize, I don't have that tendency anymore. And then we move towards freedom. And so patiently, keep trying to keep your mind and your thoughts focused and to keep your practice of Kriya up. Now, I want to talk a little bit about God's role. Remember in those lines of the poem, I want to tell you all of Him and the way to encase Him in your bosom and the discipline that brings His grace. So what Master is talking about is the practice of Kriya and meditation and discipleship, the whole spiritual path, how that draws the grace of God. Because ultimately, it is the grace of God that does everything. I remember once in the early years when I was on the path, I was having a karmic test came to me. I couldn't get along with another person. And I was sincerely trying to get over this. I was doing everything I could. And I was praying and doing affirmation and sending light to the other person and every technique that I could think of, but it didn't seem to go away. Finally, I just came to Swamiji and I said, Swami, do you have any recommendation of what I can do? I'm doing all these things. And he laughed with great love and great patience and wisdom. And he said, oh, ultimately, these things are just God's grace. And what I came to understand over the years, it's not that God wipes it away and then you're free, but I had to get bigger than the test. And that's how God helped me. He expanded my awareness, He opened my heart, He helped me to understand the other person, and then finally it just wasn't an issue anymore. And that was how the grace came. But we have to prepare the soil for God's grace by doing our Kriya practice, which enables us to find a point of objectivity within ourselves, to find that point where we have the ability to make those mental, emotional, inward changes that really help us to receive the grace of God. And so ultimately, it is all God's grace. But we have to remember that we draw that grace through attunement with the Guru and through listening always, intuitively trying to feel, as it said in that beautiful poem, I will speak to you through whispers from eternity, intuitively trying to feel God's presence with you, and that grace, walk in that grace, awake in the morning in that grace, eat with that grace, go to work with that grace, serve with that grace, and go to sleep in that grace. Live in that grace. The more you consciously are aware of it, the more and more you will be transformed, and your Kriya practice will be the catapult that frees you from the mud, being stuck in the mud of this sorry world, and lifts you on wings of grace into the bosom of God and into the joy and bliss of our own soul nature. So we send you our deep blessings and our deep joy in sharing this path of discipleship and Kriya Yoga with you.